Good morning, all of you, and welcome to today's program. March 15th to 21st is Brain Awareness Week. So, we were actually planning for a lot of programs, but then, due to some other government protocols, we had to reduce the scale. We have a lot of organs in our body, and brain is one of the very important organs. And I think all of you know about it. Mr. Gopinath, can you say from a general point of view, you need not say any academic point of view, why do you feel that our brain is very important organ of our body? What do you feel?
I think brain is controlling our whole body,
Yes,
all systems.
yeah, that is fine. Brain is controlling our body, and all the vital functions are getting
All the
controlled.
vital functions.
Are getting controlled by our brain. So naturally, it is one of the vital organs.
Every system is a replica of that, like our democracy or railway.
Yeah, the broad complexity of the brain, we can have replica of everything. Yes. Well, let us have one demo of the various organs. So all of you can see the screen, isn't it? All of you can see some model there in the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So all of you can say, if I have a small stick. What are these? Any idea? What are these? This part. This part. I am showing you this pen, blue color pen, and I am touching here. Anybody?
In this one.
Yeah.
Intestine or
Yeah, this is a small intestine. What about this one? The big one? This
large
part?
intestine.
Large intestine. What about this brown colored thing? Brown
Liver.
liver. And what about these two things?
Lungs.
Lungs. Okay. Inside
Lungs.
this, in between, there is something. What is that? Between the I think these two things, we have
Esophagus.
esophagus, and then behind that also we have our heart. And what is this part?
Windpipe. Windpipe.
Okay. And what is the top? In the top,
The brain.
So see, this is like our somewhat analogically, you can say that the brain is the CPU. Okay, nowadays all of you are familiar with computing systems, computers. The brain is the CPU, and we have the full body functioning, and brain controls the full body. So because whatever signals we are trying to do for anything, it has to be first sensed, and then the signal goes via electrically. So the sense is transformed to an electrical potential, which is transferred to our brain, and then it decides what to do, and then actually the action comes. All this happens very fast, and that is the reason actually our brain is so important. And if a part of the brain is not working, we are losing a part of the information we could not interpret. If you take out, it is something like this. So you can see if you focus it, see, it appears something like this. And if you open it, see, there are a lot of different sections inside. In fact, if I mark it with some pen, there are different areas in the brain actually which are dedicated for different functions of our body. And then there are certain names for each of these portions. Front portion has a name, back portion has a name, bottom here has a name, side. All these names are there. So we need to study, and we need to actually remember. Why should we remember so many names? Because when we speak about a certain area in the brain, we should be able to communicate to others that in which area about what we are speaking. So that is the reason actually we have so many names. Not only in this brain science, in every science we have a positional aspect, and that is what the labeling is all about. So let us go to the presentation. This session, the first session, we will call it design an imaginary animal. Now we will come back to it. What do we mean by design? But first, as we were showing you that our brain is very important, we were trying to understand that. And now the thing is that see, you are seeing a brain. It is not like a liver or a stomach. It is not a single mass of cells and tissues. It is winky, and it is folded, and it is wrapped. So how much do you think actually our brain weighs? Can you say something? Can all of you tell how much?
2 kilos.
2 kilo. Who said this? Gopinath?
No, no.
No, no.
Others.
Okay, Rahul. So you said 2 kilos. What about others? What do you feel? What is the weight of our brain? Can anybody say? Any other participant? Can you just guess at least?
3 kilo.
So classically, actually, I will say you that classically what happens is that it is around 2.7 kilo to 2.5 to 2. It varies actually. It is from a small baby to a big infant. Average it is 2.7 kilo, and it sometimes become bigger also. So it becomes 3.7 also in fully grown adult, but on average young people it is around 2.7 kilo, and it starts with a say when we are fairly young enough, it is around 2.2 kilos. And why it is so winky? These are actually their nerve tissue cells in the what is called neuron cells. Actually, neural cells makes up the full thing about brain, and it is wrapped and kept in a small location, and inside our skull, and is highly protected with membrane, and it does lot of functions. So that is the reason actually it is so much winky. So let us identify few of the lobes. Basically, brain has 4 separate lobes. Lobes are actually regions. We will be thinking that each part of the brain. So one part gets damaged means that functioning will become vulnerable. That is the reason actually they ask us always to put helmet when we go in a bike, or we have to protect our brain, because this is the reason. Because if your eyes are working and your brain's that portion is not working, means that function will go irrespective of whether your eyes or ears are functioning or not. So that is the importance of the brain. So we have in the front side we have the frontal. You should remember, if you want you can make a small sketch in your some paper, and you can try to remember it. See the front side of our brain, here actually the face lies, and here the eyes, nose, and all those things. So this front side is called frontal part. So it is related to thinking and planning. So if that frontal section actually gets damaged, then we will have not only that, actually there are minute thinking, there are actually coverings and all. We will go into the great details afterwards, but for the timing, actually if the frontal section gets damaged, we will have problem in thinking and planning. We can't do that. And then we have the parietal section. So here in the backside, the top location, we have parietal section. It has to do with actually touch, smell, and taste. So we get the sense of touch, smell, and taste after the thing is getting interpreted from this particular section. And then we have a section called temporal section, which is to do with hearing and language. All of us know that how do we hear? The sound waves come, and actually it makes the ear oscillate our eardrum, and that eardrum actually makes our fluid actually oscillate, and ultimately signals goes to our brain. It comes here and it is interpreted, and then we sense it. And then when we acquire language, now these are some of the things. Actually humans have so much area, so much volume of this particular area, so it depends on how much of the neurons are dedicated for this particular thing. So if you have so many cells there, or if you have less cells there, that much functioning aspect is reduced. So humans are actually masters in learning. We learn so many languages and all, and so this is well developed, and it is called hearing and language. This is the temporal section. And then this is the occipital section. So though our eyes are in the front, for viewing certain thing is in our back. So back is very important, and if somehow somebody hits her or see her and this portion of the brain get damaged, irrespective of how your eyes are there, you can't see, you will become blind. Okay, so that is very important. So we have the occipital section, and then we have something called, for example, balancing and coordination. You learn cycling, you learn to move in bike. So some things you learn acquire for a long term. So all these are controlled by actually the cerebellum. So we have the frontal section, which is to do with thinking and planning. We have parietal section, which has to do with touch, smell, and taste. We have the temporal section, which has to do with hearing and language. and we have the cerebellum section, which has to do with balance and coordination, and we have the brain stem section. Now let me come. We have already discussed these four, and so these are the 1, 2, 3, 4: occipital, frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal. And we have the cerebellum here for balance and coordination, and this is the brain stem for breathing and heart rate. It is used for breathing and heart rate. So these are any doubts about all these for few sections which are discussed here? Anybody, any doubt is there? Did you follow? Did you understand the positional aspect of these parts in the brain? Any questions? So if there is no question, we move to the next section. So look at this picture properly and take a pencil for 2 minutes and try to write down some things which you find that this dog's brain and the cat's brain, they differ from each other. Take a pencil and try to write down, so that we will try to analyze certain things. So I have already discussed you. If you want once more, I will go back to the previous slide. So this is the frontal section, this is the parietal in the middle, and bottom part we have the occipital, and in the side we have the temporal section. This is the cerebellum, and this is the brain stem. This is the broad structure. Now you do one thing. You see the cat's brain, different section of the cat's brain are shown. The top side view, top view, left view, and all those things are shown. Cat's brain, this is the dog's brain, these are the cat's brains. Now try to compare the different section in these two aspects. So try it for 2-3 minutes, then we will come back to it. Okay, let us come back. Can somebody say me what anything they have could manage from these two, how they are different they are? What are the major difference between a cat and dog's brain? I have said you that we have the cat's brain and the dog's brain. So what are the major difference? You can compare the as it is said there, which of these animals have more balance, which of this more balance means the larger area is dedicated for that particular section, more for smell, which other functions you feel that it is having more area. So you can say all those things and you can compare. So this gives us actually some analogy between how to learn. So can you say that? What about dog's brain and cat's brain? The morphologically bigger on a broad way, how do you feel just when you see the dog's brain and the cat's brain? What is the general aspect you come to know about it? Which is bigger? Which do you feel is bigger?
Dog's brain is bigger.
So dog's brain is bigger, and so it has more number of winkles, and which is having more number of winkles. Obviously from the picture actually it means that dog's brain has more number of winkles. So you know that dogs moves together, they are social animals, and then but cats are not moving together, they are mostly moving alone. They have their kids and all, kittens are there, but as a whole actually they move alone. Cat's brain is somewhat smaller, they don't have so much complexity, they don't have the social aspects associated with them, but dogs have the social aspects and all, and so dog's brain is somewhat bigger and it has more number of winkles. So these things are what we can get it from directly from seeing a picture. What about the smell part of it?
Dogs can smell better than cats.
Why do you feel so? From the brain's perspective, you see the structure of the brain, which area of the dog and the cat do you feel that it is more? Anybody? If you want to look back at the previous slide, see our thing to do with smell is parietal, that is touch, smell and taste, this portion. So this is our section for actually that smell, touch and taste section. And when you come here, you see that you see the dog's thing is here, smell, touch. It is much bigger than, because obviously this brain size is bigger, but this area also is bigger compared to the cat's area. And so actually you can see that as Shornabo was telling, that dogs can smell better, and we take dogs for actually smelling and finding out in lot of situations, police, for investigating purposes. They use dogs, they don't use cats, and they get out the things. So that is one thing. What about cerebellum? Which is cerebellum? Cerebellum is here. Cerebellum has to do with balance and coordination. Cerebellum is here. Now just focus on cerebellum part, and what do you feel? So which animal has a better, bigger cerebellum? Coordination, balance. Which animal has better? Compare means you see the this part compared to the total brain. What do you feel? Anybody? We have to respond, otherwise simply by listening to some slides it doesn't. So once more, if you want, you can go back. As I was telling you, this is the frontal section. So we are now focusing on this part, the cerebellum, which is to do with balance and coordination. So now you come back and see the dog's brain. You see the dog's brain here and cat's brain here. So you see that, and you see which area is actually, cat has more area or dog has more area associated with compared to the total brain. So one thing I will say you that in this particular these two animals, dogs and cats, we have the cats which has actually more area actually dedicated for this balance and coordination, and that is the reason actually you can see that cats can balance when they jump from walls, or they come inside your house by jumping through some rod. They can balance themselves very well. The dogs are not able, though the dogs can actually smell very well, but dogs are not able to balance themselves and coordination. This aspect cat are more smarter than dogs. So now let us see about bird versus raccoon. So this is the of a raccoon. Raccoon is a mammal, and we have a bird's brain here. So you can see that the cerebellum is here, cerebellum and cerebrum is here, and we have other things we have not studied. So just concentrate on this front side, middle, back side of these two. So what can you say about these two? And there is one more thing about bat. You can see a bat's brain in the bottom. So can you compare all these three brain and say something? What do you feel about all these three things? Anybody?
Raccoons have more neurons than
which one?
Bat.
Raccoons have
Raccoon.
more. Yeah, so they are mammalian aspect. They have more neurons. But then what about these two? Our birds and bats. So there is any comparison between them? See the winkles. See the smoothness. They are also very important. See, a plain mass is a mass. It is having actually it is not wrinkled, means the complexity is less in that particular thing. So mammalian aspects, a raccoon, if you stretch it, it becomes very big. So it is folded and kept. But in these two cases, the wrinkles are less. So it is not that something very big has been bundled and kept in a small area. So complexity of these two are less than this one. So this is having lot of features which these two may not have. But these two are similar in many aspects, because you know that this is a bird brain, this is a bat brain, and birds fly, bats also fly. So what about this raccoon's brain and bat's brain? If you compare, though they have certain similarity, whether anything you can say about these two? Anybody, any comment on these two? So if you forget again, I will go back to the slide. So these are the things: frontal portion to do with thinking and planning, the top central portion to do with parietal section to do with touch, smell and taste, and we have the occipital to do with vision, we have the cerebellum to do with balance, temporal to do with hearing and language, and brain stem of our breathing and heart rate. So based on this, can all of you comment again and have a fresh look at all these three and say something about it? I think one thing we got is that brains, bat brain and bird's brain are similar in many aspects. A bat brain and raccoon's brain are non-similar in many aspects, in the sense that it is more wrinkled and these are more plain. so they are not similar. The complexity in the raccoon's brain is much higher than that of bat and bird's brain. So these certain things can be there. And what about the regions of cerebellum? So how about this developed central region of cerebellum, bat's brain and raccoon's brain? What can you say? So cerebellum, as we have seen, is to do with balance and coordination. You can see that bat's brain is more developed compared to raccoon. So these are all things we can actually infer from this particular aspect. So what about human's brain and chimpanzee brain? All of you might know that chimpanzee behaves in very many ways similar to humans. But what are the difference between the humans and chimpanzee when you compare them? There are areas in the brain which are called associated with Wernicke area and Broca's area. These are to do with actually understanding a language and understanding the meaning of a language. So when I am saying you something, I am saying in a language. So many people understand language, but many people have difficulty to understand the meaning of the language. They could not make the sense out of what they are hearing or they are seeing. That is one thing. So there is some part of the brain which is actually associated with understanding and then decoding the meaning of that particular thing and understanding a language. So these are the things which are there. So they are called Wernicke area and Broca's area. And other things are already discussed before. Now can anybody comment about humans and great apes? What are the similarities or what are the differences we can find for these two? Which area is larger in which of these two mammals? Can anybody say something about it? Look at the language processing area. Maybe we can see, as it is shown here, you can see these areas. These areas are much larger compared to the brain area. If this is the total figure, if you take these two area covered, it's much larger than compared to this chimpanzee brain, and if you take these two area. So what it interprets is that this Wernicke area and Broca's area of a chimpanzee is much smaller. It's smaller than that of a human, and therefore this decoding of the meaning of a language or decoding understanding a language is not as acute, means not, because humans are much developed in that aspect than the chimpanzee. So we understand now that human brains have been partitioned into, human or any brain is partitioned into certain sections, and these sections, though it is somewhat developed in some species or some animals, some birds, it is not developed in all the way. All the brains are not developed in exactly the same way. So the capacity of certain actions are more prominent in certain species and less prominent in certain other species. So these informations we get, and these informations we can understand just by comparing their different types of brains. So based on all this what we have studied, I have a small homework for you. Can you do it? So you should know actually what is the section of the brain, which section resembles what. So you should know, and then actually based on that, use your knowledge about whatever we have studied today. You create an animal and its brain. You create a brain of an animal. So that brain, once it is created, animal's capacity will be linked to that whatever you have created, and then you consider the following. For example, draw your animal, create the brain, and then you can, based on whatever sections you have included, you try to find out that you have seen a bird's brain, you have seen chimpanzee's brain, you have seen a bat's brain. So you know that birds lay eggs for their young ones. Chimpanzee and humans give birth to babies. So their mammals give birth to babies. So we have see this life cycle. So life cycle, how it differs for each of these. So what is the life cycle of your animal? What you have made? Does it produce egg or give life to birth one? How many offspring does it can have at a time? Social communication. What senses does it have? How does it communicate with con-species or same species? Physical attributes, how it would look like. Maybe that is a more general aspect. How does it move? How does it breathe? We know that which area are associated with breathing aspect and all. Then what is its habitat, whether it can move socially together or whether it can move in discrete isolated way. Where does it live? By comparing the dogs, cats, whichever brain structure, all our habits, all our ways, actually whatever we do depends together with our, means it depends much with the way our brain